Look, we're wearing khakis. Torso khakis.
There was a time where I only bought things in the gray shade, like the cool colors, because it was just so much easier to like put something together. If you got the warm colors and the cool colors, now all of a sudden you're getting dressed in the dark closet in the morning and you come out looking weird.
Well,
So
if you
I
hire an
simplified.
architect, they might design a light for your closet.
The problem is you wake other people up. That's the problem. There
You
is a
know,
light in the closet, but
I look at it this way. You know, they're they're supposed to be awake. Everybody's supposed to be awake, right?
I look at it this way. You're on my schedule. That's what I think you do think that because when we were in DC, you're like up super early
Or what we call
or
on
up
the
super late.
or what we call on the Eastern time zone, normal time.
Normal. You're right.
Like,
Oh,
it's like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I was
Uh,
awake pretty early.
Little earlier than me.
Yeah, all of
Uh,
you West Coasters were like, "What's this? I need
I'm
coffee
dying.
first."
I hate traveling to the East Coast just because of the time difference. That's the worst part of it, for sure.
So
It's
it's
like the flight, it takes forever to get there. Like traveling west is better. Come on, you know it. You actually get your time back when you travel west.
it's like a surprise when it comes home,
It's like it didn't even take that long. Come
right?
on. Yeah. Yeah.
So
So, okay, you have
so we're back.
continued Cormac's architectural summer adventures. What is going on? What is in the water? How
Oh my
did this
gosh.
work out? I mean, it's just one thing after another. We've chronicled it on this podcast, and I
Right.
can think we're going to continue to chronicle Cormac's. How can I fit another C word in here? Cons- construction? That doesn't sound right.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
know. We'll have to ask
although
AI
it's
for a.
Cormac's chronicling Cormac's curiosity.
There you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There,
yeah. So catch us up. There you go. Another C word. Catch us up.
catch us up.
Since it has been a while since we've
It
talked
is.
because of various reasons.
Yeah,
I
we've
mean,
had,
summer just this happens, but other reasons as well. But
and
whatever you're willing to
I took
share, I would love to hear what has happened in your
I
chronicles.
took that ever so needed and rarely ever used. What do they call it? Oh yeah, PTO.
PTO.
Yeah. So
Yes.
decided to go and visit the office and just had this weird bug where we're like, okay, we're coming. Now's the time if we're going to take any time off to take some time off, just a little week. But if you plan it right, weeks usually end up being like 10 days if
Hmm.
you're
Hmm. If you're smart.
if you're smart and you like kind of do everything. And I tried to be.
Good. Good on you.
And so it was this particular trip back all the way to the East Coast.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Much shorter trip back east than my
yes,
trips back
exactly.
east, but still, here you are.
Was going to be one where the whole family wanted to go back, but because of a concert that my son had already bought tickets for, he was going to stay back, but then he was going to come later. And then I thought to myself, all right, are you really going to come to Maryland and, visit with friends and everything? So, oh yeah, yeah, that's great. Okay. So what I'm going to do, like, ask my wife, I'm like, how about this? Kids go back to Michigan on their own because they're adults and they can do that. Just so, when you're raising kids and stuff and you don't,
You're there.
yeah, exactly. You just don't
You
picture
made
that.
it.
Right.
Good job. Pat on the back.
Exactly. So I said, I basically asked her, I was just like, what do you think about driving up the East Coast and going to Nova Scotia. She's like, are you serious? Like, yeah, why not? We've got passports, we'll travel, right? And with the knowledge that what it was really going to be.
You live across the street from Canada, basically, but you're talking much farther away.
I'm talking much further away, much further away, because I'll explain that in a Scotia, in a Nova Scotia.
In a Nova Scotia. There you go. There's the title.
All of this was kind of a ruse, because one of the things that I wanted to do for our 25th wedding anniversary, and she'll probably kill me, but she doesn't listen to the show, so she can't.
Yeah. She won't.
Is her 50th birthday was this year as well. And so I've been calling this year
29.
Sure. We'll go with that. Whatever.
Yep.
No, actually she owns up to it. She's like, I've earned it.
At some point the switch gets flipped and you've earned it, right?
Yeah.
Denial. I've earned this, damn it.
Exactly. So,
all right.
So this was all sort of a ruse, because one of the things that I wanted to do for our wedding anniversary is, she is a massive fan, watches it all the time. I bought her the box set, the DVD set of Anne of Green Gables. She's got the book series, everything. So she grew up watching the movies, quoting the movies, quotes the movies to my daughter all the time. And so she's a huge fan, which is great. And where it was filmed, where it took place, and where the author was born and raised was in Prince Edward Island. And so that was really the plan, is that, sure, we'll go to Nova Scotia, but really where we're going is we're going to go to Prince Edward Island. But we had a long trip, and we weren't going to take this trip, try to like pound out, I don't know, somewhere around the neighborhood of like 13 to 1,500 miles in like a day or two. We paced ourselves, made it kind of an adventure. And so as we were driving, I found the opportunity to say, hey, I think we need to stop for a break. Took the opportunity to stop in multiple places just to break it up, but also do some exploring. And one of the first stops was in Yale, New Haven, Connecticut. And I'm like, I think there's some Louis Kahn buildings here. And I think there might be an Eero Saarinen building here. And so the good thing is let me preface this by saying that I do have a wife that appreciates architecture and does actually enjoy some of these side trips. So it's not an
well, especially if they're amazing, right?
Yes.
It doesn't hurt.
And
okay.
And so the art museum by Kahn, got a chance to, get out, walk around.
The art museum? What? You didn't go to Texas. What are you talking about?
No, the Yale Museum of Art.
Okay, so I'm hearing this for the first time now too,
yes.
Listeners. So Cormac needs to give a little more context here.
Context. I don't have any of the pictures up to like flash to you guys right now, but but we'll put them in the show notes. So obviously there's a few Louis Kahn buildings on Yale's campus, one of them being an art museum, and that one, it's interesting, beautiful. Like, you're driving down the road, and it, like, because of the way that the road kind of shifts right as you're at a light, you're staring right face to face with it. And it's kind of interesting because I'm curious what everybody thinks of that building. Because
what came first, the building or the road?
Yeah, probably.
That's what I want to know.
Probably the road, because there's a lot of older buildings.
Lucky.
Yeah,
that's good.
And then we saw the whale, which, if anybody knows what the whale is actually Eero Saarinen's hockey arena on Yale's campus, and amazing.
The Yale whale,
just an amazing building. Everything that you come to expect and love out of Saarinen's work. This beautiful kind of like rolling concrete that you just look at it and you're like, how?
I'll tell you what I would expect and love is some images via text or Instagram from you along this trip. Geez, what you are seriously slacking.
You are right. You are absolutely right about that because honestly,
you've gone internal here. You've gone dark on us, Cormac.
I took some pictures and I did post some pictures, but not a lot. And I am way behind because I do have a lot of pictures to take because
you have a lot to go through.
I have a lot to go through. And as you can imagine, what is the one thing that happens to you when you come back from a vacation?
You start working. Yeah, you get sidetracked.
But what is inevitably the issue when you come back is that you are bombarded with everything. Hey, Cormac, while you were gone, we did this, this, and this, and we really need you to kind of take a look at this.
That's why you got to do it along the way, however imperfect it may be. Yeah, you got to be in the moment. You need to allow us to be in the moment with you.
So that is why. But I will say that I just tried to be present for my wife.
No, I appreciate. I can appreciate that. Just giving you a hard time here.
Totally. I get it, and I understand because here we're going to be talking about like this little architectural trip that I took with no visual aids. You're just going to have to draw it out of me of like, what did you see?
Look it up, people. Look them up.
Coastal Maine. I mean, what can I say about Coastal Maine other than the fact that, damn, it's
bucket list.
It's these just amazing. So the thing that I started to appreciate on this trip, because one of the things that we did is we took a lot of like side trips into the old downtown, the downtowns that the highways pass by.
Cool.
Nice. And you got to see the way the town actually lives.
In America, they call that the business loop.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
off the highway.
Right. Yes. But the business loop is where the life of the town actually is. And so it was just amazing to kind of like stop at some of these little small towns in Maine. Yes, we actually did drive through Kennebunkport and did not get a chance to we were driving to, I don't know if, and this is not a sponsor ad, but I don't know if you've ever used the Hotels Tonight app.
No, but you tell me about it all the time.
I tell you about it all the time.
And so, how useful it is.
So I
have a travel trailer. My hotel is on the back of my truck.
This is true. This is true. And I will say that I kept seeing all of these camper vans and campers and kind of like the little adventure vans now that everybody has.
Yeah.
And just kind of looked at them as, just think of how much money I could be saving if I wasn't trying to find a hotel.
No, those you just spend all the money up front, and then
there you go.
You very slowly get it back.
There you go.
Prepaid hotel. That's all that is.
Something must have been going on in Maine, where from Portland to Bangor, Maine, there was nothing. There was no hotels available. We honestly, not only did we use the app, we looked at other apps, we looked at hotel apps, we looked at everything. There was not a room to be had anywhere. I have no idea. We've experienced this a few times where we were just driving and they're like, sorry, hon, but we're booked up because there's a convention in town. And like within 200 miles of wherever that convention was, there wasn't anything. We experienced this.
It seems like on the East Coast, that would be like more in the fall because of just the fall colors and things like that. I mean, maybe it's just summer vacation.
We were told you were looking for a hotel, and it was the weekend. And so we were trying to find a hotel as we were driving up the East Coast on a summer weekend where everybody has already got a hotel, which I can appreciate that because we stopped and looked at some amazing views. I could not convince my wife to just get an air mattress and put it in the back of the truck and crash out there, but she wanted what was called a real bed.
What's that?
Yeah.
What kind of adventure was this?
I know. I
Jeez.
know. There was no sense of adventure. But what was amazing about it is we did happen to find like all of not only just like the great little downtowns, but also had the opportunity to find some masterworks. And Yale, I had never been to Yale. I've never been to New Haven, Connecticut. And
Mm-hmm.
as someone in higher ed, it was actually great to just we got out and we walked around campus and just kind of there was a lot of different like alumni events seemingly going on. There were new student tours and stuff, and so you got to see kind of like how both students and alumni were interacting with the university. And it's good to see because this is what we do. Like this is what this is what I've been doing for the past decade of my life is working on higher education buildings and campus planning and things like that. And to honestly see them in both like the active days of during the school year, but also how do they stand up and how do they live through summer or off, the non-peak hours.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great to just see it. It's a very, very active community, very active. Like even if the school's not in town, townies are walking through campus. But it's just it's a cute cute city, because it is actually a decent sized town, city, town, town. What do you want to call it?
Whatever it is.
New Haven, you're a city to me, or town, I'm sure. But I know that there might be somebody who's listening who is a Yalie that will correct me on this. I'll just wait for that one.
Email Cormac.
Yeah, I'll wait for that input. But it was great to just, again, not have to convince my wife to go and look at she did, however, refuse to get out when I was walking around the whale because she was done. She was tired. She had enough. She was hungry. And I had to go see a building instead of feed her.
Priorities, man.
Priorities.
Priorities. Good job.
Concrete over caviar, woman.
It's your 25th wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
I'm going to go see some architecture real quick. Hang on.
I did find a nice Italian restaurant, had a fantastic 5-course meal, and then hit the road with half of it in a box because she wanted to go and find a hotel. She wanted to at least make it to Maine, and then we made it to Maine, and then realized that we'd have to keep driving for a while. I will say that driving to Canada, probably any foreign country, but when you're crossing over the border on the ground and they start asking you all sorts of questions about why you're there, can we see your itinerary and all this other stuff, and you're trying to convince them that you are a sane person and safe person and you have no itinerary, you're making it up as you're going along, and you only have one area that you actually have reservations for. And the rest of the days that you're doing, you're just going to try to figure it out when you're there. And they looked at me so skeptically.
Like no one does that anymore, I guess.
I'm just holding strong to that, like just making it up as you go along kind of like travel philosophy.
Yeah. It should be allowed. Yeah.
But the border guards were highly suspect. They were like, do you have any weapons on you? Like, no. Do you have any weapons in the car? No. It was just like, I'm not that kind of American.
Okay.
No. She was very like skeptical about the whole thing. I'm like, no, I seriously not that one. Not that guy. So it was really sort of interesting. So then we get to Prince Edward Island was our first destination, and we did everything. Anne of Green Gables. Yes, they have the Anne of Green Gables historic site because even though the book is a work of fiction, it still is all based off of the writer's childhood and life. And so where she lived and the adjacent property that was patterned after Green Gables actually are real buildings and were where her cousins lived. And so like a lot of the stories that she was telling about the main character, Anne Shirley, was all based off of actual places and that you could visit. And so, of course, my wife cried when she saw it because it's totally a part of her life. And And this
Yeah.
was the thing is like, it was so like amazing that there were people from all over the world. That is not hyperbole, all over the world there visiting this site. And it goes to show you how, not only story, but even like the places in story that
The
like
backdrop
the
of the
backdrop,
story. Yeah, or the environment.
shall we say, the architecture affects people. And because like the main one of the two main characters of the stories is Anne Shirley and the Green Gables house. And so the people came from all over the world.
They become a character, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that is interesting about space and places,
Yeah.
that they can actually become a character. Think about Kubrick films, right? Where
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
the hotel, and there's the Psycho House,
Yeah.
and there's so many examples of that kind of thing, and it actually is a character in the story.
Right.
It's pretty incredible.
Right.
So for her, I bet it was extremely, like, not only nostalgic but just cathartic to actually go. I'm sure she imagined herself there someday, and then
She
there she
imagined
was.
herself there all the time. As she was just like, I think I was reborn from. I lived in the Victorian era. She says, I know I did.
Yeah.
And that's
Past lives.
yeah,
There you
exactly.
go.
And so,
Yeah.
but she's also just pictured herself on the cliffs, the Cavendish cliffs, where like some of the main scenes in the book and in the movies take place. And so there, of course, we were to celebrate. And this was a belated celebration because we did have an actual, like, on the day of our wedding anniversary, but time, family commitments, and everything else got in the way.
Dude, I just recently had an anniversary, and I got flowers for my wife, and I'm not complaining at all. I love my wife's response. She's like, "What are the flowers for?" I just think, I always think it's so funny.
Well, we've done that so many times. We've been sick on our anniversary. Somebody's been I was even out of town at an AIA convention, spending time with you rather than my wife.
Oh, yeah.
There's been all of these different occasions where like we just don't celebrate it the way that normal people do.
That's how things work. That's normal life right
life,
there.
yeah. And this time I said, like, this is our 25th. We've got to do something special on this one. And she wasn't expecting anything. And I wasn't even letting her know. So she thought that our wedding anniversary was...
Oh, so this was like an internal monologue that you were having.
Yeah.
We need to do something special for this.
Yes,
That was you talking
that was
to
me
you.
talking.
Okay.
Like she,
All right.
again, wasn't expecting. She was probably, expecting what are these flowers for? Kind of thing. And we did have a nice dinner together and spent a weekend antiquing, I believe. And that's what she thought our wedding anniversary was. And she, in her own words, she was like, "Oh, this is perfect." Like,
you are officially old. We spent a weekend antiquing.
What's sad about antiquing now is when you go in.
It's not even like really antiques anymore.
It's when you go, "Oh, I had that when I was a kid."
Yeah, it's stuff from the 70s. Totally.
Total side note here. If you go to the Henry Ford Museum in the Detroit metro area, they have this whole area dedicated to everything we grew up on. There's the first Mac. There's Simon. There's all of these things. There's like all of these things. And we're like, yeah, I had that. Oh, Commodore 64. Oh,
I wanted that. Yeah,
exactly.
Whatever it was.
Or I wanted that. Or
I had a friend who had that, and I coveted
like,
it. Yeah.
Oh, look at these rich people had this kind of thing, because they even have like a teenager's bedroom set up. Like, what is the typical teenager from the 80s?
That's awesome.
And you look at it and you're like,
just a time capsule.
And what was funny is, like, the last time we were there, I was standing around with a bunch of other Gen Xers, and I just looked at them. I'm like, well, we're museum pieces.
Yeah.
And they all just look at me like,
official.
And every one of them just kind of like drop their head, shake it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Those are the days.
Yeah.
Come on, people.
But what was great about PE Island was it's just this little bit of an exploration because
Look at you. You're like a local calling it PE Island.
I don't even know if the locals. Although
you've adopted it as your second
although
home.
I will say that when I don't want to jump ahead in the story, but there was somebody who definitely called me out as, yeah, you can tell you're not local, was their exact words to me when I said a certain word.
And there you are.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so not a local.
Yeah.
Although there's an interesting accent in PE Island where it's kind of, it kind of almost is a mix between Irish and Minnesotan. There's like this interesting accent. And
you could probably like actually detect the path that
oh
people
yeah.
took.
So,
that was it.
Like,
except you're talking about like kind of a reversal of
exactly.
that.
Well, no, because so like everybody, so one of the other reasons why we wanted to go there is this is Nova Scotia has roots in my family's history. And so, like my family immigrated from Ireland to Nova Scotia, from Nova Scotia to the United States. And there's still a lot of my family that had immigrated originally from Ireland to Nova Scotia, still in Nova Scotia. In fact, a lot. And I'll tell you why in a sec. And so that was one of the reasons why we wanted to go to this, go on this trip, as well as because there's family history on both sides. Well, so we decided to explore Prince Edward Island and drive around there as much as we can and see as much as we can. It's not that big, so if you're not deliberately staying at one of the resorts or like a local who really kind of knows where you're at, you sort of like, not a lot to see.
You can see it all pretty quickly.
You can see it all pretty quickly. So when we decided, let's go down to Halifax and explore around Halifax. We took a ferry across the North Atlantic from Prince Edward Island to Nova Scotia and kind of like drove in and then ultimately ended up driving into Halifax. And what's amazing is you can see the roots of Halifax being a old fishing town, but also a major seaport for where a lot of immigration happened. A lot of immigrants came to Canada, but they came through Halifax. And so Halifax was sort of the Ellis Island of Canada.
Right.
So fair enough, they've got the Canadian Immigration Museum. And so, of course, we had to go there because I kind of wanted to look at some of my, family history and just see kind of like, okay, when did my grandparents actually come over from Ireland?
So you have access, you can actually go see go through the records.
Yes.
And, that's
which
cool.
was amazing. But what was even more amazing about it is that the U.S. Census has actually got my grandmother's, or my great-grandmother's birthplace wrong. She was not born in Ireland. She's actually been in Canada for generations, but in Newfoundland. And it's like a lot of her family. And so she had immigrated from Newfoundland to Nova Scotia, kind of back when there was like no real, like they weren't necessarily part of Canada in the way that they are now. They were like kind of these individual provinces. There was a lot. So there was and you'll appreciate this with your family lineage. Their family did come from Ireland, but their other parts of her family also came from the Nordic region, the Scandinavia. And so there's a lot of Scandinavian, Irish, and Scottish in Newfoundland, Labrador, and Nova Scotia. And so there's now I have for a future trip even more to explore because these are like islands. Separate.
I would have had you look up my grandmother's side of the family if I knew you were there because there's my dad's side, his mother's side came through that way, the Patrickan family. So Ireland to Canada to Kansas. Yeah.
Well, there's still a little bit of lineage history that I need to look up, and it's my connection through my grandmother to the Troxels.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's
Exactly.
right. I
So I
forgot
still
about
need to
that.
figure that out. So
Yeah.
so it was really interesting. And so as we know, because we had already talked about this, that if I was going to be in the area, if I was going to be in Nova Scotia, there's one person that I was going to be looking up.
For eagle-eyed listeners right now, they may remember a previous conversation of something that happened at the AIA conference in Washington, D.C. in June.
Somebody geeked out.
Maybe catch everybody up. Give everybody, again, a little bit of context.
So
here.
at the AIA convention in June, I was at the Lake Flato discussion on design, and me and our buddy Brett were sitting near the front row, and I'm sitting here chatting with him and all that other stuff, and he's kind of like bumping me, he's like elbowing me, he's like, hey, there's your boy. And I'm like, what? And then at first I didn't see who, I saw Steve Ehrlich. So, oh, hey, Steve Ehrlich's there, kind of like walking by, and then I saw
Brett's like, not the other one. Yeah.
and then I saw walking next to him, Brian MacKay-Lyons. And so when I had confronted him, which sounds like a very harsh word,
You
I
stalked.
stalked him. I was going to, I was not,
Politely.
again, not going to be,
politely
I
stalked
was
him.
again not going to be that guy that followed him in the bathrooms. But when I turned the corner and realized, oh, they're in the bathrooms, I'm not going to do that. But met him out in the corridor. We sat and we chatted. I had mentioned to him that we'd be coming into Nova Scotia. And he's like, oh, you got to look me up. And so I did, which was great. I did, which was amazing. But so as we're sitting here, we're chatting. And again, he's very much like the border guard. It's like, oh, we're only going to be there for a little bit of time. And trying to explain to everybody, this is just a scouting mission. This isn't like the big grand. We've already made a pact with ourselves that the next time we go back, it's a 2-week vacation. It is not a 2-day vacation here, 2-day vacation there, and then we're kind of out. It is we need to it was more, the whole thing was basically all about getting my wife to Green Gables and her experiencing that.
Sure it was.
That was,
Yep.
and yes, and
Right.
then the follow up, and yes, I still wanted to, but so
The story behind
the story behind the story. So we did go to Lunenburg, which is where Brian MacKay-Lyons has got, or MacKay-Lyons Sweetapple is the firm, but Brian MacKay-Lyons has got his office in Nova Scotia. He has an office in Lunenburg, and he actually also has an office in Portland, Oregon, because they are doing, I'm saying,
You need to get him on the podcast. And that's all I'm saying.
I'm thinking we might be able to.
Okay. Let's do it.
And so what was funny is here you are. It's just like, oh, you don't want to meet your heroes kind of thing. And, again, I appreciate the work that he does. I appreciate the regionalism. I mean, regionalism is something that I learned to love and appreciate through the Rural Studio and the teachings of Sam Mockbee and all of these other, a lot of the architecture firms that I really like are regionalists, really. The Marlon Blackwells, the
most architects. Well, yeah, I shouldn't say most architects, but I would say, people do kind of specialize regionally.
It's different, though, when we're talking about, I don't really want to say Starchitect, but I guess Starchitect. It's like they're like, Sam.
In your eyes, in our eyes. Yeah. Right.
Sam Mockbee, he practiced in the Southeast, and it was all about like the reinterpretation of the way that people lived, especially like the trailer, and
right.
And, in the evolution of that, in the materiality and everything else. And it was just some amazing work that he did. And it's this, you see the same thing with a lot of these architects, and too many to name, but
Sure.
Faye Jones and all of these other ones.
Schindler comes
Schindler
to mind,
and exactly all of
yeah.
these people that
Right.
they really were developing a language of their area, right?
Yep.
And I
Materiality,
yeah.
right? All kinds of things.
And
Environmental.
honestly, because
yeah.
of like the emotional connection that I have, or like it's this weird emotional draw to Nova Scotia that I have, that of course I never knew anything about, only because of the fact that I knew my grandfather was born there. I knew that my family had emigrated to
Same.
there. So like I had this just draw. And the more and more I was learning about it back in the day, and then into architecture school and learning about Brian, it's just this amazing stuff. It's just like, here's somebody who's in tune with the place and is developing a language of architecture that is drawing inspiration from the place. And to finally
totally.
to finally get a chance to actually see where he
I just have to say, like Rand Elliott,
Oh
right?
my
Like
gosh,
an
yes,
amazing
thank you.
example of
Yes.
that kind of thing.
Rand
Yeah,
Elliott, of
right.
course. It's just like to finally get a chance to see like where, the place where he draws a lot of his inspiration from for the work that he does. It's just like, yeah, I get it. This you can see the lifeblood of the work that he does in the place that he's from. And it was just amazing to see it. So like we pull up, and the first thing we do is we pull up and show my age again there, Evan. We pull up in front of an antique store. And so we go into there first. And then I'm kind of like rushing her. I'm like, I want to.
This is how you break the ice when you go to a new location.
Yeah, exactly. It's just my wife truly believes that we are going to find that. You know how you hear all these stories of like people who find like these hidden treasures of like, hey, I bought a Picasso for like 50 cents at.
I just saw a video of somebody who scored like 2 Eames lounges with ottomans at a 3 of them actually.
So
right, and it was like
behind me is behind me is a knockoff Eames lounger, but not the Plycraft one, but a Selig one, which is a little bit closer to like more. It's closer to the style of the Herman Miller Eames lounger, but got the whole thing for $300, and still, great condition. It's still a mid-century seat. It's in great condition and all that other stuff.
Especially with the bouquet in your image here, like you can't even tell. It's perfect.
Yeah, I know.
It's a great Archispeak prop.
Yeah. Every time I sit there, it's just like, yeah, no one can see it. There was one.
You're covering it up.
There was one setup that I had that it was actually over my left shoulder here. You could see it. But anyway,
behind the scenes of the Archispeak podcast.
So I finally say, hey, there's a building I want to go check out down there, which happened to also be his building that he did.
Is this code? Like your wife has got to
She
know
knows.
what that means.
So we're walking up, and I see this guy all dressed in black standing outside this building with his back towards us, and I'm like, hey, there's Brian MacKay-Lyons. She goes, the building? I'm like, no, the dude.
The
dude. And so she's like, all right, see you later. Like she let me kind of like scurry up there, and I walk up.
Go fanboy over there.
Yeah, totally. And so I walk up, and I'm like, Brian, and he like turns around and goes, hey, I remember you. I'm like, whew, good.
Yeah, nice.
Like,
nice.
I'm glad, because then because if not, this will be creepy.
I'm here.
Exactly. So we had a few conversations before I left anyway, just to kind of let him know that I was going to be in town, and that if he was even remotely around, I'm going to be knocking on his office door. And it's a great little office. It's a smaller satellite office, probably, I don't know, maybe a 6-7 person setup. That just fits in beautifully with his old fishing village. Did I not send you pictures of Lunenburg? Of like the
I don't. Yeah, I think
Okay.
you did because it reminded me of some stuff I visited in
Yes,
Scandinavia, like Norway specifically.
and it draws a lot of from those coastal fishing villages in Europe,
Right.
in the North Atlantic, and just those very, very vibrant colors.
Hmm.
These, and so you had
It's very
it
picturesque.
is,
Yeah, and the
it is,
scale is very
yeah,
small of everything, but it's just kind of it's really beautiful how it is just kind of organically grown over time, and you can just
yeah,
see it.
yeah.
You can see the layers, right? It's incredible.
And I may be getting this wrong and exactly. So it's a UNESCO World Heritage District, and it
Okay.
is one of two in North America. And I believe Quebec City, I could be wrong, is the other uh,
Mm.
UNESCO World Heritage District. Um, which, by the way, to just
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 dropping
dropping that
names.
name
Yeah.
there. But and so we sat there and we talked for a while. My wife was sitting there, and we just had
You told me that you talked to them, and I'm like, and you recorded it, right? Come
a.
on.
I should have. I should have. But
I bet it would have been cool to
oh,
hear.
the
Yeah.
thing, it was so fun though, but because so we talked about a lot of things, including American politics, which I'm gonna just say right now, not a fan. So
He
no,
isn't. Okay.
uh,
Not no surprise.
which
Who would be?
yeah, and it's oh my gosh, it's so like in recent years, and I'm not even going to go here, but I am going to at least just say that in recent times, in the many different client meetings with overseas clients, and then with the meeting with Brian and all of these other people, people are talking. The world is talking about America, and the world is talking about
Hmm.
American politics, and none of it is favorable. But and I'm
Sure.
going to move
Of course.
on because this is not the show, and we ain't talking. Um, but what was amazing, and this was just like for him to give me this time was great because we sat there and he pulled out his iPad and we zoomed around the islands and he was showing me all of these like favorite places and stuff like that. He's like, this is not too far of a drive. Go see this. And the
This is
next
the
time
best way
I,
to get the
oh my
insight
Lord,
about
yes.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Just you need someone
Yeah.
like that who could just say, you need to do this and this and this and this, and that's the best kind
Yeah.
of tour guide there is.
Because
Yeah.
he was like, obviously you're not doing it now, but the next time you're here, you need to go and spend some time here because this is the most amazing place in Nova Scotia. And it's like on the far end, closer to where my people are from. My people. and so and so he was like walking through his favorite spots, his favorite locations, places that you, as a local, when you're just sitting there with pride talking about your place, that was the time that I got from him, which was just amazing because
That's cool.
again, this is like, I sort of always lament about some of the choices that I made about of what I practice because
Hmm.
I've been at firms that were small firms that were deeply rooted in, like, say, St. Petersburg when I worked for the small firm there, which now a friend of mine owns, and how deeply rooted it is in, creating a language of architecture that's based off of the place it is. And and again, like I said, to be sitting there in his office and you can kind of see the inspirational roots of all of, maybe not all, but most of the work that he had on display. And then you see like all of these nice physical models that he's built from the, like the slide house or the 2-hull house and all of these other houses and stuff that,
Can you talk about that real quick before you? I mean, just talk about that property
oh,
and what's going on
yeah.
there because I'm sure there's a lot of people who've never heard about
Okay.
that.
So
I mean, if you want to finish what you're doing and then
no,
and
no,
then
no,
talk
no,
about
because
it, whatever
all
order you
no,
think
because
is
all
the
of it
best.
actually leads into. So he's like, he basically said, and he may have said this, and I may have interpreted it as, oh, why don't you just drive out to my property and drive around and you can look and see all of this stuff.
You
He
heard
may or
what
may
you
not
wanted
have
to hear.
said that, but that's what I heard, and that's what I
Okay.
did.
Yeah. So talk about the property.
And
Like, what
so
is this?
the
Like,
farm,
because
um,
yeah,
and
this is
which is
crazy.
amazing because like, so some of the houses that I was introduced to his work are on his property. And it's this big, big property overlooking the Atlantic Ocean on the rocky coast of Nova Scotia. And there you just see you see like this. What's amazing about it is you see this evolution of his work. You see the slide house, which is, if anybody is familiar with the slide house, and if not, we can put a link to his website that
You're gonna
that
have
shows.
to
Yeah,
put
I'm
links to
gonna
all
have
these.
tons of links.
Yeah.
But the slide house is basically the hill is sloping, and you took this box, and it looks like the box is like, sliding down
Rotated.
the hill, but it's really
yeah.
not. Then you have like this horizontal line of the windows cutting through that, is what appears to be diagonally cutting through, but it's basically cutting through the plane. And so
The diagram is very clear. The
oh my
party of
gosh.
the design is very clear. to
And
most
the
people.
execution is very clear too. Going back to that whole like idea and execution thing that I've been talking. And but I mean, like all of these houses that I became familiar with his work, there's a lot of them in this area. And then there's some evolutions of some newer stuff. These cottages, there's the ghost cottages, or there's his own personal houses there. And then there's a lot of Airbnb rentals and stuff that he now has that were part of, I think, his ghost studio that he had at one time. I did find out that they do offer, like, I don't know if it's a summer internship or something, that, basically you, I guess come work for him and also live and work on the farm. You'll be working on the farm too. Like, I'm curious if there's an age cut.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like, sign
drag
me up.
my 54-year-old honey out there. And,
I could make it work.
I mean, if he needs me to shear the sheep that were roaming around the farm,
I can do that.
I can do that. I can do that.
Just watch some YouTube videos. I'll be there.
Look, you know how many times you and I have done mechanical work on vehicles by YouTube? I'm pretty sure. Look, I've watched Clarkson's farm.
Yeah,
I can do it. If he can do it, I can do it. But I mean, there was just amazing work out there that just like, it was so funny. It's like I was driving uphill, and you're basically driving uphill and you're like staring up into the sky. That's how like the steep the slope is. And I can't see the crest of the hill. And I like, you just kind of like feel it, your vehicle drop.
Kind of creep over
So
the
you
top.
creep over the top, and then it just opens this view up to like, you get to see like all of the Atlantic coast of his property. And and then it just opens this view of like all these works of his dotting the horizon and dotting your
Objects
and
and
it's just
landscapes,
like,
right?
oh my gosh. And there's so,
Yeah.
like what we were talking.
And they're all different.
They're all different. But like what we were talking about with Frank Lloyd Wright in his philosophy of being of the landscape and not on the
Organic.
landscape.
Oh, that's right. The quote. He had that quote.
Well, but I mean,
the architecture is more organic than nature.
Well, no, not that. Not that one. But just the being of the landscape rather than on the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
Is all of these are so beautifully blended in that they look like they belong there. What's
interesting though is they are so different, and yet you can kind of see a thread because of that. Maybe because of that regionalism you were talking about, but it's like materiality, the way that they've weathered over time. All that is a big part of it. I think, and so it's pretty incredible.
You get to see the evolution, not only of his, let's say, initial understanding and his initial interpretation of the regional architecture and how he interpreted it, to then this kind of evolving idea and notion of what architecture is and what place is. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of an amazing, it honestly is really amazing to see all of that like pulled together so that you can sort of see almost like you're looking at an anthology book of somebody and you see like their career, their span of their career. You can see it in the landscape, and it's just so cool.
Yeah.
And I think so. Like then we were driving around the landscape, and then as we were driving out, I saw kind of a dirt road that there was another house on, and I'm like, and then there was like a sign, a for sale sign, and so I'm like, yeah, let's just go and look and see what our future
Why
property
not?
could be. And I drive up there, and then happened to be like a couple of the Shabik like work trucks or something like kind of like came up. And so as we were kind of like driving around, I kind of like waved at them. They waved at me, but they were there to see if make sure I wasn't up to no good, which
Mm-hmm.
no one can ever ensure that. Like I'm always up to no good. So nice try.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I'm sure you looked very threatening.
I did. I had
Always.
an Auburn baseball cap on. And you know how that is. I'm from the South.
Mm. Yeah, red flag right there.
No red flags. But so that portion of the trip, and there is a lot more, but that portion of the trip where, you know, I got to see, so it was interesting is like that portion of the trip, we got to fulfill two bucket lists. My wife's finally getting a chance to see, experience, tour, and walk around the grounds and touch the same things that Lucy Maud Montgomery had touched, and see the inspirations of what she saw when she was writing those books. And so my wife got a chance to see all of that, and I got to see like one of my favorite living architects at their office, got to drive around some of their work and kind of just plan the next trip there so I can spend maybe a little bit more time and maybe bring you along, and maybe we can do a podcast recording with him on like sipping tea and coffee overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, because that sounds great.
It does sound great.
And
Man,
yeah.
what the heck? This is like chapter 5 in Cormac's Summer Architectural Adventures. This is insane.
It was so not planned, but happened beautifully. Just kind of like, you know, when we were talking with Angelo about our trip and kind of pulling all of that together, where we had like all of this big plans of like everything that we wanted to see, and we only got to see like a small portion of it, but half of it was made up and half of it was planned. It was sort of the same thing. Like most of this one was made up, but still somewhat planned, at least just to get her up there without her really kind of knowing it, but not really knowing it. She didn't really know where we were really going. And that was the joy of that one, is just like, not going to tell you that. But I will say that if anybody plays the alphabet game when they're driving, which is basically finding words that start with A, B, C, you know, all the way through, Canada is brilliant for that. Yes, there are large stretches of it. Why? Because the signs are in both English and in French. So damn sure can find that cue that you rarely can ever find on American road signs or cars. But Quebec, thank you. Because
there it is. Yeah. That's cool. Oh, I'm super jealous. That's awesome that you got to do that. So yeah, call him up, get him on the podcast. Let's do this. I think it'd be fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We'll have to do it.
All right. Well, is there anything else? Are we're gonna take some more summer vacation?
Well, I can't even tell you. I mean, you know,
I am. Yeah.
Who knows?
I've been working my booty off here. I'm ready for one. Oh my God.
Well, you do actually have a trip coming up.
I have made reservations. There's many miles involved in ours, but yeah, we'll be road tripping to South Dakota in a couple weeks.
Well, so how many miles is that? Because I'll say I put just around a little over 5,000 miles on my car from Detroit to DC.
Of course you did.
To Nova Scotia.
It's kind of what you do.
Yeah.
If I look up like Custer, South Dakota, it is 20 hours of driving. It is let me click on it and see. It's 1,335 miles to get there.
Okay.
So That's the minimum.
Okay.
It's at least 2,600. It'll be quite a bit more
Yeah.
than that once we're all
So,
done.
be-
Oh, I'm not even going that way. I'm going up. I'm going through Boise.
Boise.
I'm going the northern route. I'm going
Oh.
Boise, Idaho Falls.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go down through Salt Lake City, which is the faster route, but
Have you ever been to Idaho?
it's not that much faster. And we're going to go through the Tetons
Oh, nice.
and stuff like that. So through like Jackson, Wyoming, and that kind of area. So yeah, there's a lot going on this trip, and I figured I had to start planning it. It is literally like less than 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's going to be a big
I
one.
am going to say in future episode, we'll definitely talk about that. Oh, if we want to talk a little bit about like my impression of Quebec City and public spaces and where America went wrong with creating these beautiful like little
Oh, the grass is greener
oh
over
my
there.
gosh. Quebec City. Wow. Like old Quebec City, man. Urban planning. It is the closest thing to France outside of France. It really
yeah.
is. And although so you walk into every place, it's just like bonjour, and you're like hello. So
I heard it's a different version of French there. Is that
well?
Do you know anything about that?
If you believe everything that I have heard and everything else, that because it was isolated, it is actually a purer form of French than what is spoken in France.
So France has evolved. Is that what you're saying? And this one
and it
did not.
It has been isolated, and so it is
Interesting.
like when it was introduced, it is that you sit and you talk to everybody, and they have a very, actually on Prince Edward Island at the bed and breakfast that we stayed at, we, had breakfast with a couple from Montreal, and the lady was born in Montreal, and the husband was actually from Chicago. She had a very, very heavy, thick French accent. And we were talking about, we're on our drive home, we're going to be hitting places like, Quebec City and Montreal. And since you live in Montreal, where do you suggest we go? She's like, skip Montreal, spend more time in Quebec City. I'm like, oh, okay.
An honest review.
Oh, it was total honest review too. And
opinionated. Yeah, it's good.
So we did. We spent some time, day and a half actually, in Quebec City, and obviously there's much more time that needs to be spent there. But I need to take my daughter, who is learning high school French, to at least get us through there because
nice. You do.
I mean, everybody speaks English, but everybody else, speaks French, and it's the. You can see on my Instagram page a few pictures that I took, both of my night shots and also the daytime shots of old Quebec City, and walking through there with, just this whole activation of the street and the little alleyways. The alleyways are used as like extensions of the shops, and where local artists are setting up kind of like their easels with all of their like work. And we bought some color pencil drawings of Quebec City from this one artist, and it was just it's something that for some reason we aren't really too far off of having kind of that like activated street life in some of like these old downtowns that we were driving through, kind of avoiding the highways and driving through some of these little old like main streets. But there's just something very, very American about our main streets versus their very European versions of it, where like in like old Montreal and old Quebec City, and even in Lunenburg where we were at, the street activity is so very European. They use every space. All of the spaces are a place where you can have a cafe or
you can cram something in there, right?
And it was just, you're
totally.
Like, why don't we do this?
It's like an old city.
Yeah, it was
cool.
so delightful. So delightful.
Nice.
Man.
Well, how do you say goodbye in French, Cormac?
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Good job.